I'll never forget this recently. This realtor gal that I know acquaintance-wise, she's posting peptides. Here's my peptides. Do my peptide. And I'm like, what? If you were taking peptide advice from a realtor that started taking peptides 3 months ago, you deserve every stupid thing that's going to come along.
Everybody who has a phone has a microphone. Everybody who has a phone has a platform. Hell exists where everything's a lie. Everybody's lying. Everybody knows everybody's lying. Nobody's allowed to tell the truth. So everybody acts like they believe the lie, but nobody actually believes the lie.
Sounds like Congress too.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of what social media is, right?
I'll never forget going to see a chiropractor one time. Pulled into the parking lot, and there's this guy kind of out back, kind of like beer belly, smoking a cigarette. And I go in to my appointment, and that guy walks into the room, and I was like, "You the chiropractor?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Was it you out back smoking a cigarette?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to." And I'm like, "I'm freaking out of here."
I want to make the distinction between somebody who has a good physique and somebody who has a lot of knowledge about how to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
A physique is part of your health, but it's not by any means all of your health. It's not even the majority of it. They're
like,
great
when's
fit.
last time you had blood work? And it's like 7 years ago.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
Man, I'm glad you can bench press 300 pounds, but when's the heart attack coming?
Guys like you and I have been steeped in this our whole lives. Yeah. We've been living it, practicing it. We know people who are experts in all different facets of it. How does the lay audience decipher the signal from the noise out there? Today on the Doc Parsley podcast, we have a guy I've been trying to do a podcast with for at least a year. We've had a couple of near misses. His name is Adam Lamb, host of, is it the 1% Doctor Show?
Or the 1% Doctor Podcast.
1% Doctor Podcast. And we're gonna get into lots of interesting stuff about health and wellness, and we're gonna get Adam's take on how do we discern through the BS out there of all the what's the difference between the different doctors, different types of doctors, health influencers, who should you be listening to? So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
nice to be out here in lovely Arizona area.
Yeah.
And love your setup here.
You're coming from Woodlands, right? Is that?
Yeah, the Woodlands, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it still pretty cold out there? Or starting to heat? Is it cold?
No, it's
up already.
80.
Oh,
nice. So here it's we're rolling into Texas summer heat here. I mean, it's like 90 something today, which feels good. We have the dry heat here, which is awesome. Where in Houston, it's more like you just stepped out of the hot shower.
Well, I grew up in Katy, Texas.
Oh, so okay, yeah. So,
when it was a small rice farming town, we still had plenty of rice fields and lots of mosquitoes and lots of humidity. And when we first moved out here, I've always thought that, well, it's dry heat. Like I always thought that was nonsense. I'm like, it doesn't matter, heat's heat. Yeah. But here, it can be 105 degrees, and I can work outside for 20 minutes before I start sweating.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In Texas, you know the deal. It's over 90. You walk from your house to your car, and you're soaked through your shirt.
Soaked,
you better have
I literally
a stack of shirts.
I have a black shirt underneath, a t-shirt underneath this shirt, just so I don't have walk around with sweat stains everywhere.
Yeah.
You gotta be strategic in your dress.
It is quite different out there, It doesn't get a whole lot more humid than the Houston area, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that's pretty bad.
It's good. Born and raised outside of Detroit, Michigan. So for me, it was such an upgrade from a weather standpoint, lifestyle standpoint, people standpoint. I think I've been there for coming up on 9 years, and one of the things I love specifically about the community I'm in the Woodlands that I think you'll appreciate too is it's like crazy fit. I mean, every other month there's a marathon. We do the Texas Ironman's coming up here. I think actually next weekend, and just people are active, people are healthy, people are care, which isn't all areas of Texas, or obviously not all areas of the country. And I think it's important if you are health minded to be in an area where people are also health minded. It's motivational, so to speak.
And, and we can just call a spade and say that affluence tends to lead to healthier crowds too, right? And Woodlands is definitely, I remember growing up as a kid, like the Woodlands was where the rich guys lived, it is a nice area.
So
it's a nice area, and, same thing around here. Like this neighborhood we're in, there's 70 houses in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's probably 50 people on the streets every morning walking.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Out
like
walking, same.
everybody's out walking. You know, everybody. You know, it's an older group, so there's not a lot of people running and getting after it like that. But you know, everybody's health minded. I haven't seen a single obese person. You know, fairly healthy, and then it's just kind of people who have the resources to not be grinding and not be worried about.
Yeah, and there's an aspect of that too that I think it boils down to how much you care.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I say about the Woodlands is this community is full of people that care.
Yeah.
And so when I care, I take care of my yard.
Right.
I take care of my health. I probably, work, not necessarily harder. I think people can get offended by saying work harder, but work smarter, continue to strive and move and grow up. I grew up, I was born in Pontiac, Michigan. I was raised single mom.
Yeah.
I didn't have an environment. Dad had alcohol issues, and my other side of the family was into just eating and being overweight.
Yeah.
I had no role model for it. So it wasn't instilled in me, but I wanted more, right?
Yeah.
And it, like we were talking about offline, is I was inspired by one of the things I liked is I seeing like these fit guys like Schwarzenegger and Stallone as a kid, and realizing it doesn't cost money to necessarily look like that. It's a decision, and like you can do push-ups and sit-ups and run and get in great shape and be poor. Right now, the more money you have, it can allow you more opportunities to some of the really cool things that can be done too to advance what's possible with the body.
But I think it's there's a correlation. Obviously, there's a huge correlation with discipline.
Yeah.
The more discipline, you can't be in good shape no matter how much money you have, how many resources. If you don't have the discipline to put in the work, you're not going to be in good shape unless you're just absolutely gifted from God. These Apollo-like genes.
Freak athletes.
That's very, 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 very rare. Obviously, most people have to work for it pretty significantly. And I think And you don't need to be rich, but you have to be out of poverty so that you can care about something other than getting the next meal on the table, right? And I grew up very similar circumstances to you, a single mom, trailer park in Kima Island, just on the ship channel in Houston. She got remarried and we moved to Katy later. But I mean, everybody there's just. They're just getting through the day, man. They're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to work and working until 6 or 7 at night and coming home and eating a TV dinner and drinking a beer and going to bed. And and plus, when we were, I'm a little older than you, but when I was a kid, when you're a kid, people didn't know that much about fitness and it just was. Guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger were kind of a novelty. It's almost like a circus act. It's like, what does he need all those big muscles for? And now Arnold's just a big fit guy by today's standards. He's not even a bodybuilder by bodybuilder standards today, right? Like he doesn't look anything like that.
You can go to most kind of popular gyms and see a dozen of guys that look better than he looked back in the late 80s or early 80s.
Yeah. Okay, so grew up with a hunger for fitness and
I was just interested because
getting out of poverty.
Well, I think there was something that I had a story, and again, poverty. I'll say, poverty is a financial situation, but it's also a mindset,
for sure,
right? And so, surrounded in, we'll call it that mindset and physical. I remember as a kid wanting to play football, and I couldn't afford the $100 it was for like the uniform stuff, right? And there was a part of getting made fun of for that, right? Sure. And put a chip on my shoulder. And so there's a part of me that's like, well, what can I do? And I was like, I can start working out. I can start learning about nutrition and things like that. So by the time I was when I was a junior in high school, I really got into working out. And by the time I was a senior, I remember, but I still, here's the other side. I wrestled with alcohol and I like drinking and chasing girls and doing all the dumb stuff. And a funny story is I won a bench press competition as a junior. I drank a 40 before the bench press competition. What kind of kid I was. Yeah. And benched 360 at 155 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And in my head, I thought I was so cool because I was stronger than these guys in the football team that were, bigger than me, had all the resources in me. And I was like, and I drink a 40, like that was kind of like, you can imagine the young person I was.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, by the time I became a senior, even the football coach was like, Lamp, why don't you like get it together and come be a killer athlete? Because I started, I played a little bit, but then I was into getting in trouble, getting suspended, getting in fights. And so I would have never been able to play. My grades weren't good enough, and hated going to school. Never went. So the football coach, really, he was awesome. Kurt Richardson was his name, great guy. And he's like, hey, how about we'll do weight training for first period. Second period, I'm going to have you be my teacher's aide for the second weight training class. And third period, you're going to be in the men's conditioning class, which only football players are allowed to be in. Because I would go, because I was kind of cocky. I would go to like early birds and stuff in the spring. And just try to run laps around some of these guys, because I was like pissed because I couldn't play. But at the same time, I wanted to prove that I had the athleticism, right? And so he had me in there. I was working on form, because he knew, he was like, this kid knows more about form and nutrition. I'm like, here's a chicken, rice. Like, I had a Tupperware chicken and rice in high school, eating that.
Doing a meal prep,
no one even knew what meal prep was. And I'm just giving advice, so he saw where I could bring value, but he also saw like, this gets this kid to school and this gets this kid focused. So I was grateful for that. Even coach, the basketball coach, Coach Dan Fife, who unfortunately passed away recently, he saw that in me too. And he knew I couldn't afford to go to the gym. So he was like, hey, whenever you want to go use the high school weight room, which wasn't that great then anyway. He let me do it. And what it did is it gave me confidence that I didn't have. And I wanted more. And it also was something where I was like, hey, here's the rich kid whose dad, I remember Ford Probe, a buddy of mine he's got a brand new Ford Probe GT. And I was, I had this like 77 Impala that didn't even have reverse, and like just a piece of junk. But what I had that he didn't have from the discipline is like, I had abs, like a bench press, and I was like, that's something that I can get no matter how much money I have. And I kind of became obsessed with that piece, and I think people sometimes see me today and they don't realize like the gap of how far I've had to come and figure problems out, the brutal path, to what we might call success. And, but it started with that. And that's where I really fell in love with health and wellness, more for myself, right? More for myself, and to give myself the confidence that I had of taking my shirt off around the other high school kids. And I was like, look better, and I look back at those pictures today and I think of my son who's 17, who can't walk by a mirror without taking his shirt off and doing it like almost every night. I'm brushing my teeth. He's coming in to say goodnight. And he's like, well, he just got back from the gym. He's like, well, these lats, Dad. I was doing these pull-ups. And I'm like, oh, you look great. But he's 128 pounds. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I think we would have been great friends in high school. We would have gotten fist fights with each other on one of the series. It sounds very, very, very similar personalities. Okay, so after high school, you went into kind of just regular working industry.
What I started, I got into bartending. I had a good friend that worked at like one of the biggest nightclubs in Detroit. And he's like, hey, you want to come be a bar back? And I was like, it was like the coolest place, right? It was called Clutch Cargoes. And I was like, if I could work there, I was like, sure, whatever. And eventually became a bartender. And it was like the hottest spot to go to. And some of these other, so in the bartending scene, again, I like drinking. I like girls. That was my path. Now it's still, and this is like early 20s where in the morning, at noon, I would wake up and, it's like I would go to the gym. I would go get 2 McDonald's $1 double cheeseburgers, post-workout meal.
Been there,
go home. And then I'd work at nightclubs 4 nights a week. And I was making good money. Making maybe $1,000 to $2,000 a week in tips and stuff like that, working 4 nights, working the party. And I was like, this is the life I want. And I still worked out because I wanted to be fit, but I wasn't healthy, right? I'd lost that. It was still the drinking, the partying.
But you're young enough to maintain a physique. Without doing the stuff right.
I think you and I, we probably, when we see these younger guys in their 20s, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. Like,
exactly.
Let's see
that's cute. Call me in 20 years.
Let's see in 20 years if you still have it going on. And and a big change in my life was when I met my wife, who's I married way above my league, and I was like, I gotta change this because in the nightclub, every weekend it might be like, oh hey, what's your name? You want to go hang out later? And it's like, wait, I'm gonna have to break that habit.
Right.
And met my wife and was like, okay, I gotta change something. I'll never forget a buddy of mine, Rob, that I bartended with when I met my wife, engaged, got married, but I was still bartending, and I knew that wasn't ideal for the relationship. But I'll never forget my buddy Rob was like, well, hey, you're getting married now, you're gonna quit working out. Because I always got crap from my buddies because I was kind of fit. None of them did. And I was like, no, I'm gonna keep working out. Maybe I'll be going to bodybuilding. Right. And he's like, you'll never do that. And it was funny, right around that same time, working in the nightclub, there was a guy, I can't think of his name, unfortunately he passed away. He was a pretty big bodybuilder. He did some like WWE stuff, and he was like in the club, and I was talking to him, and I was like, whoa, no one knew who he was. Oh, he's just the biggest guy in the club. And I was like, hey, he was a muscle tech athlete for a while. And I'll never forget, this is like all within probably 30 days. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking I want to get into bodybuilding. He was like, you're probably not cut out for it. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a muscle tech. Like, I want to be I want to be like you and be in the magazines. And he was like, yeah, I don't think you're cut out for it, kid. And again, chip on my shoulder drove me a lot of my younger years. And so I was like, I'm going to figure it out. Found this IFBB pro that lived near me. And I was like, hey, what do I got to do to be a bodybuilder? And he was like, let's get to work. Yeah. We trained legs and back every week. Chest was always an easy thing. Yeah. And, started going down that path of bodybuilding.
Most people believe they can get by on 6 hours of sleep per night. But the truth is, for every hour you short yourself of sleep, you're interfering with your performance, your hormones, your memories, and even your relationships. I saw this firsthand while I was working with the Navy SEALs who are using Ambien at night, energy drinks during the day just to get through their lives. That's why I designed Doc Parsley Sleep Remedy. It's a natural nutritional supplement that's designed to get your brain to do what it's supposed to do. If you want to perform your best at work, home, and in the gym, start with sleep. Take the first step, grab yourself some Sleep Remedy in the link below. I read the bartending gig, you did that, and then went into financial industry. Is that?
Yeah, so that was part of it.
Real estate, financial industry.
So I got in the mortgage space. So in this bar, I'd have a lot of these guys. They all had like cool clothes, blowing money, and I knew these guys. They're in the mortgage industry.
Right.
This is early 2000s, and they would always be like, man, you should come work for us. Like, and their joke was like, you'd be good at sales. We see how good you are with the girls. You'd be great. You're a good talker. And I was like, okay. But I think, being honest, I didn't have the confidence. Like, I was like, I don't know what a mortgage is.
Right.
I don't know. I had all the stories of what I couldn't do. And then shortly after I got married, and I was like, I need to, like, my wife is too high caliber to be married to a bartender. I got to figure something out. And I told her stories of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it almost brings me to tears every time, because I'm like, what the heck did you see in me? She's like, I saw your potential. She's like, and I'm like, I'm glad you did, because I didn't. Yeah. And so I ended up reaching out to one of the guys. His name was Chris. And I was like, hey man, you guys still hiring? And he's like, yeah, sure. Come in for an interview. And his first time, like big boy interview. And the guy that interviewed me, who was like the VP there, was like, your side looked like you. Yeah. You could tell he worked out, and he was just not mean, but like hardcore, interview. Like in my head, I'm like, did I do something to this guy? Like, is there something I don't remember this guy? Why? Like, he's a jerk. Yeah. And but that was just kind of that environment. Fast forward, he's still one of my close friends today. That we stay in contact. And it's funny that he last time I talked to him, he's like, it's interesting that I think of how we met. I was mentoring you, and he's like, now I come to you for advice, which is kind of cool. And started working for him, and I think he respected the discipline side of me being fit. But I got in the mortgage industry, which was it's called Rock Financial, just brick and mortar traditional mortgage company, which became Quicken Loans, which became like the largest online lender in the country. And why that's important is I'm in this time, and I can dive into like where I was dealing with my own personal hormones, and also learning about expanding beyond what you should do, getting into the bodybuilding space. Is I saw this process of transitioning a traditional mortgage, like traditional medicine, taking it online, doing everything over the phone. Mm-hmm. And I saw this thing where it's like, patient comes in, they fill out health history. Right. So customer comes in for a mortgage, fills out a loan application. Right. You pay some money, get blood work, consultation. pay a deposit, get an appraisal, it goes to underwriting. Right. Underwriting is like the doctor. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's the mortgage that you qualify for. Here's the program. And I had experienced it because prior to that, I had low testosterone in my early 20s. Probably some of it to drinking some of the lifestyle stuff, but we think also maybe something head related or something like that too. And I met some docs that I knew in South Florida. I'd go down there sometimes because my dad lived in Florida, so I could like check the box and see them. And then, but I wanted to get out of the mortgage industry because I loved health and wellness so much. And I got a lot of attention because I was into bodybuilding. I'm huge, walking with a suit, walking around with a gallon of water. You know, it had all my meals prepped. I'll never forget, like the CEO and even the chairman of Quicken Loans they're like wanted to pick my brain because they're like, how do I do this? Or and I knew all the stuff because I just started reading like crazy, right? And we didn't have, the internet wasn't as accessible as today, and we'll go into that of like how a lot of the internet's BS anyway. But then there was some stuff you had to like really do some research, and that's where it started giving me the confidence I could start my own business, which was a nationwide telemedicine company. So I had all these kind of high profile guys that wanted my attention. They wanted to work with me, and the guys would come to me and say, hey, what do you think? I'm like, you should go get this blood work checked. Right. And I knew it because these other guys I worked with and all the research, and they're like, I took this to my doctor. They don't know what any of this is.
Right.
And I'm like, these guys are like millionaires. How do they don't know? Their doctors don't know that stuff. Yeah. And that's where I kind of had the idea of how can I help these guys, get access to what I had access to, because I was nobody, and be like this middleman concierge. I knew how to, some of the bartending stuff. I worked with really high end things, and with athletes.
What year approximately are we talking about?
In
for segueing from the mortgage industry into this business telehealth kind of idea.
Yeah, so I launched the telehealth company in 2012, but I started doing the mortgages in 2005.
Okay.
And then it was right around like 2010, 2011 though, is when these guys would see me in like our little corporate gym, and they're like, I'm working out, I'm doing the thing, and that's. So I started doing this almost like online coaching before that was a thing, where literally like a flip phone, one of these executives is sending me a picture of a menu, and they're like, what should I order? And I'm like, do this, nice. Ask them, hold this. And I had it, and these guys, and I was like, well, I just wanted proximity, because for me, I'm like, how do you get rich? Like I want to do what you guys do. Yeah. And they wanted, how do I get fit? But they still, they're like, we want to pay you. So a handful of these guys paying me $1,000 a month to kind of be on call, like to help them with these things. And I'd shuffle paperwork from this doc to them, do this, and hey, you want me to help you schedule the LabCorp appointment? Anything I could do. I understood the concierge side of it. And eventually one of these guys, Josh Linkner, who's a great man, great author, great business guy, he's like, dude, you start a business doing this. And I was like, I don't know anything about a business.
Right.
And he's like, you're doing it. He's like, this is how businesses are started. You found clients, you saw you're solving problems. And so I just started like reading like DEA paper, all the, like, what are the rules? How can I do something compliantly? I started a thing with like a legal pad. I didn't even have a CRM or anything like that, which, obviously continued to graduate some of those things and built stuff for that. And that's what kind of went into that right around 2012 is when I launched it, doing nationwide telemedicine. And then June of 2013 is when I like walked away from the mortgage industry. And one piece in between is when I worked at Quicken Loans in the mortgage industry, I was working 12-hour days. It was like 8 to 8. And then I'd go to the gym and I'd come home and I had a newborn. So it's like, I'd see my son in his crib, give him a kiss. I'd come home, my son was in his crib, and it just wasn't ideal lifestyle wise anyway. And I had an opportunity to go to a bank when they're like, hey, we have like 4 branches. We want you to oversee the mortgage stuff. No boss, like just roll in. I can go in my office, shut the door, and it's like, knock if you need a mortgage, right?
Right.
And they gave me a big guarantee to come over there because I had a large book of business and a good reputation, which had been great. For me, I really had a knack in the financial side. I became a portfolio manager when like the whole housing crisis was going down. We were solving problems with these hedge funds and all this. It was cool. Like for me, a guy who I barely graduated high school because I couldn't get past pre-algebra. 10 years later, I'm managing a $250 million, hedge funds book of business and moving, like negotiating these. And I was like, I just didn't, I was my things, I was too dumb to quit. Like I didn't know any better. I didn't understand the magnitude of the stuff. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And I just learned it, It was interesting.
That's perfect. So I didn't even graduate high school, and I took pre-algebra 4 years in a row. Yeah.
I was like, started with the freshman, and then as a senior, I'm in there with all the freshmen. Same teacher, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I should have switched teachers. I don't know. Maybe it's his fault. Probably
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you have personal experience. Obviously, you were educating yourself. You're working with, sounds like some very forward-thinking, progressive doctors who could understand, at least knew something about the health and wellness space and performance as opposed to disease care.
Yeah. And one of the caveats, though, I think, which is different, you could probably relate to this, is socially, they were weird. Crazy smart guys, right? Because they're like almost ahead of their time, but socially weird. And I'll never forget introducing one of my clients to them. The guy's like, I don't want to have to kind of talk to you. And that's where I kind of the aha for the concierge side of me being kind of the wellness coordinator, the kind of go-between. He's like, the guy's weird, but crazy smart. He didn't have we'll call it bedside manner, but he didn't understand how to communicate to these higher level patients, right? And so they wanted my attention, minimum time with that particular physician. That's where I think someone like you was like, you're cool, you're really, I think that has a lot to do with your success too, and I think doctors miss that of you have to be able to connect. We know you're smart, you got the degrees, but can I feel like you understand me? Can I have a conversation like we're friends? And I think when and I've taught a lot of docs how to transition to that, but they were great guys, crazy smart guys, but just they're a little socially awkward. And I realized I could be the in between, and that's what kind of motivated me to start.
I think that I think that's part of the selection process. Not intentionally, right? But if you think about who generally becomes a doctor, is somebody who's been very academic their whole lives, very into books and education. Very disciplined in that sense, or at least really gifted in that sense, usually a combination thereof, but very good at following the path that's laid out in front of them.
And maybe seeking perfect, wanting to do everything right.
Yeah, and seeking their gold star and their reward for doing everything exactly right, which is probably great for your neurosurgeon and great for lots of
Don't try new stuff on me.
but guys for people who want the type of medicine that you were promoting and the type of medicine I do, 90% of it's coaching. It's 90% of it is being able to relate to the guy, be able to have a conversation with him, be able to read between the lines, see what his goals actually are, what he really wants, what he'll actually do, how you can motivate him to push a little further, and that's just not something that's in, most doctors I went to medical school with were, very, very linear, very matter of fact, follow the protocol, follow the algorithm. And now it's obviously so much worse than it's ever been with insurance companies owning the hospitals and insurance companies directing the patient care and directing the pharmaceuticals, directing the tests. Doctors are technicians following algorithms now.
Well, and I think the second part of that too is walking the walk, right? Yeah. And so, you have a lot of knowledge. But if I look at you and I'm like, it's being a realtor that doesn't own a home, or being a financial advisor who's broke. And I think I'll never forget going to see a chiropractor one time, and I pulled into the parking lot, and there's this guy kind of out back, kind of beer belly, smoking a cigarette. And I go in to my appointment, and that guy walks into the room, and I was like, "You the chiropractor?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Was it you out back smoking a cigarette?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to," and I'm like, "I'm freaking out of here." I was like, "Dude, I don't trust anything. You might be able to pop my back a little bit," but I was like, "Nope. I want to find." And I think there's more fit doctors today, more guys that are doing practicing what they preach a bit
it's
more.
Coming along,
right?
But it's still definitely the minority.
Oh, major minority.
Okay, so you moved into this telehealth space with sort of being a concierge intermediary, like the guy in Office Space who talks to the customers because engineers don't talk to customers well.
Well, the other part too in that, I mentioned the bodybuilding piece, and so I got into bodybuilding probably 2009, 10, 11, which I loved. I loved the sport. I loved the environment. I loved the people, but it's there's no money in bodybuilding.
Right.
And I'd watch my commission checks when I was like prepping for a competition just sink. So I'm like, actually, a 16-week prep might cost me 20 grand because my sale, I'm just, you're not on, right? Because you're so focused on all that stuff. And I was like, how do I stay in this industry but make money, right? And so there was part I had these clients, like kind of the successful executive guys, and then I started getting a reputation in the bodybuilding space as like a fixer, because I also understood all the drugs these guys were taking. And some of these guys would come to me with issues, and we would start, breaking down the stuff, and no one knew what like SHBG was or any of these kind of things. These guys are like, oh, just take more drugs, and so I had an opportunity, same with this doctor group that was kind of the medical arm of what I was doing. I was basically the marketing, customer service side of like that's where I started this piece. Worked with these guys on the patient side, and kind of learned how to create a MSA and all this kind of like learning how to do all that stuff, which is way more popular today than no one did anything. I did like solve this stuff. I think of how hard it was, like how incredibly hard it was. Where today you can like turn on a telehealth company in nationwide 30 days. I mean it's crazy, but so I had the bodybuilding clients as well and they trusted me too, because that was the other part, because they're like, well, I go to my doctor and he tells me stop doing everything, and they're like, I'm not. And so they could come to me, and these docs that I worked with, they understood it. They understood like, hey, I know you're running this and this and this, and you're going to cycle this, and then you're going to do this, and just we're able to like give some of these competitors healthy advice as well on the bodybuilding side. So I'd set up a booth at like the Masters shows, because these guys are typically 35 and up, right? And so that was, I didn't want to, never worked with the young guys, it was more, let's say, guys our age. And then on the other side, one of my first, I won't say who, but I had a major hip hop celebrity who used to be fat, and I helped him get shredded because I met his trainer, and then that got me into working with all these celebrity trainers. So it was cool, because I mean, I think probably by 2014, I've got dozens of retired NFL and celebrity people. I'm watching guys on movies. I'm like, I helped that dude get jacked, and at the same time, I had a little bit of the bodybuilding guys, which I was trying to get away from, but had this cool model of like, I was every day getting to talk about the things I loved to talk about. And I knew a ton about nutrition and supplements and all that kind of stuff too. Started a supplement company in 2015. And it was like, I was just living in what I loved, taking care of, it 24/7, answer my phone, email, I was like on call because I wanted to serve all these people, and it was an awesome beginning.
And I think, what gets underappreciated in the hormone replacement therapy specifically. So I studied under a guy named Edward Lichten, who is an OB-GYN doctor, who did hormone replacement therapy on women before the Women's Healthcare Initiative blew everything up. And he got the idea to start testing men, and he saw a correlation between type 2 diabetes and testosterone levels, and started researching all that. And that research proved very, very unpopular. And he ended up losing credentials for publishing a paper on that. And anyway, so I learned with him. It was kind of like pre-Cinegenics, which was sort of the I don't know, what would you call that? The Bloomingdales or something of.
And those guys didn't like me because I still had a lot of clients. I mean, they knew who I was, the Vegas group, the New York group, because I'd meet some of their clients at some place, and they're like, here's what I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah, we could do that for a third of the price. And they're like, really?
And you're missing 7 other things we should be tracking to figure out, And so I learned with him initially, and he was very, very, very forward thinking, and a great doctor, great researcher. And then, I did the traditional training blocks to have those certifications, but I literally knew more than all of the guys there, because like I grew up in the same scene as you, like reading Muscle and Fitness magazine, like, reading all the, Hatfield's books and, things about that. And I knew what drugs were. I hadn't taken them, but I knew the language a lot more. And I'm not I'm not ashamed to admit that I learned from bodybuilders to this day, because bodybuilders test everything. They're the guinea pigs, and they'll figure it out. And now you have big forums where guys talk, and
a lot of that didn't exist. I'll never forget. I was showing someone the other day. I have this book. It's like the 2025 or 2005 Anabolic Digest, right? And it's got everything you could order from Mexico, of all the stuff. And I knew it, equipoise, and it was before like Trenmal was something, all these different drugs that were all out there that most doctors would never know what they were. Yeah. And I had to end up kind of teaching some of them what some of these bodybuilding street drugs were, so they could help.
And these exotics and things that doctors still can't order, right?
It was not even legal.
I think Primobolan's a great drug, but I can't prescribe it. So I don't prescribe it's not legal
in the country, right?
But I learned from the guys who know about that, and there's so much, just continually developing knowledge. New pharmaceuticals come out, new studies come out, and how to combine them, and it teaches me the physiology of these drugs and the
and the little
pharmacokinetics of it, and the little nuances, and I can go, oh, okay, well that makes sense. And I got really specialized because 80% of my population was SEALs, former SEALs, and I'm trying to optimize them post 100 head injuries and 13 surgeries and 20 plus year career of just beating themselves to the ground. And so, we do everything we can. And, I started doing peptides, probably 10 years ago. Yep. People think those are new, but obviously
we've been doing IGF-1 and LR3 and GHRP2 and 6 and all those. Yeah.
And now you have, I feel like, it's easy to conflate your background with these influencers who have great abs and maybe, I don't know, with all the filters now, maybe their bodies are mediocre. Right. We don't even know, right? But they film themselves working out and they talk with confidence into the camera, but they don't treat people. They don't have the long-term history with it. And that one of the topics I want to get into as is in this podcast, but like there's a very clear distinction between somebody who's been steeped in this their whole life and how old are you?
46.
46, yeah. So, you've been playing this game for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean the business, the business side for 15 and then in the bought end of the physical. And that's what kids ask me at the gym, like, hey, how do you, and I'm like, 30 years, bro. I was like, I started working out before your mom was thinking of you.
Right. And so there is, I think there's a great market for, and something I wanted to say earlier is, another thing about doctors is that we are, I think very intentionally not taught anything about business during medical school.
Oh, for sure.
Because they want you to be a part of that system, right? Yeah. And so nobody thinks about starting their own business or how would you start a business you talk to most doctors who've been in practice for 20 years and say, hey, if your life depended on it, could you start up your own LLC and start your business?
Or even the doctors that finally do, could you step away and would it all fall apart? Right. That's kind of the second level of
so I think that I think there's a subset of doctors out there who are health minded, and I want to make the distinction between somebody who has a good physique and somebody who has a lot of knowledge about how to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
And a physique is part of your health, but it's not by any means all of your health. It's not even the majority of it. It's like not being fat for sure, but like some people's physiques just aren't all that great, even though they're great.
When's the last time you had blood work? And it's like 7 years ago.
Right.
I'm like, man, I'm glad you can bench press 300 pounds, but when's the heart attack coming, or when are some of these other things coming?
And so there's this movement towards sort of lifestyle medicine, which is what I call what I do. Performance medicine, sometimes depending on the audience I'm talking to. But guys like Peter Attia call it longevity medicine, but it's we're working with the same levers, and it's all lifestyle stuff. And so you've done the telehealth component of that, but then you've gone on to coach doctors who are interested, I think pretty much in what I'm talking about right now, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, similarly. So, the telehealth. So I think what in 2014, so it was like I had some success. 2014, I was like, all right, I got to actually become a more mature entrepreneur, and got into like a CRM, and I like data, right? I don't like guesswork. I don't like bro science, especially spending all the time with these bodybuilders who are on covers of magazine. I mean, it's top guys that I got a chance to work with, and the advice they're getting from the top coaches. I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, dude, he's going to kill you. Like, we got to do this. And
there's that Russian guy who's taking 100 IUs a day of growth hormone.
That's insane.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, like, you can't. Like, yeah, and that's the thing too. I'm like, when I was done bodybuilding, I was done also with like, if I can't get a prescription for it, I'm not taking it anymore. Because you start learning, you're young in early 20s, or I'm sorry, late 20s, kind of when I got out into the bodybuilding stuff. Like, you're stupid, and then later on, you start finding out, like, dude, like, I got a family, like, and I got guys I still talk to. That I'm like, why? You're 50 and you're taking bodybuilding doses in amount of drugs. You're not a bodybuilder. Why do you want to die? Right. But anyway, going back to so like in around 2014, I think there was a part of it too for me, again, going back to like, I liked working out because it gave me confidence. I was solving problems. I had something that others didn't have. Same thing with working with these executives in the beginning, is these rich dudes who I would love to talk to wanted my attention because of information I had. And with the patients, I had a couple thousand patients, right? Going through the system, and I'm doing the check-in. Hey, how are you? What's going on? And I'm not doing the medical side. The doctors were, but I'm like listening to the lifestyle. So, hey, man, I'm sleeping better, dude. Like, libido's up. Like, wife's on a program too. She's chasing me around the house again. Like, and I'm paying attention to the data. And so I invested into its popularity, HubSpot, which was like a CRM. Yeah. But I went in and wanted to customize. I wanted to understand a lot of this data, not necessarily medical data. We had that on another tech thing that we got afterwards. But over, by let's say 2023, when I sold the company, it's 30,000 patients on there with data. Wow. And some of them over a decade. Yeah. Right? Imagine a decade of tracking someone's blood work, hormones, lifestyle. Because we had a questionnaire. How you feeling? How you sleeping? What's this? What are your challenges? Like, in women having child number one, child number two, like, and being able to monitor some of this stuff, and I became obsessed with the data, and that was something that I had that nobody had. And so, and I would talk to maybe somebody that might, well, no, you don't do this and this. I'm like, I hear you, but I got 5,000 people for the last 8 years doing what you think doesn't work because you read one textbook and you've never treated a patient doing it. That proves different, right? And so I was really obsessed with the data, which gave a lot of value to my telehealth company. I sold it in 23 and just kind of went full on the consulting side. And I still own a couple of businesses in that space because I love it. And so I continued to grow and evolve, but I became obsessed with the data, kind of moving from 24. And then in 2017, rebranded the company, took it to a whole nother level. And I just wanted more infrastructure because that point I was like, I know I'm onto something. Now I'm not just building this to have a business. I'm building this because I think I can sell it later. Yeah. And I think I can provide a ton of value. And then in 2019, I get to meet Tony Robbins through a crazy smart doc. One of the guys subscribes to the same stuff you and I do. And I'd built the platform. And so I got a chance to meet Tony, and we had a small relationship, but over the course of time, which then in 21, Tony and his team reached out and asked if I would help launch Lifeforce, because he knew, like, ethically, he knew I paid attention to the data. I knew how to build the tech, the business side of it, where a lot of these kind of like funds or other, like these other folks on the fringe part of it. Maybe I wasn't ready to run a massive company at the time, but I knew the guts that needed to go into the foundation of it. Because Tony also knew a lot of guys that I worked with who had extreme results.
The foundations that people could scale, people to help you scale.
Right. Yeah. And so Tony's like, I'd like to have you in, so I have like almost like an inside guy. So I got to be partners with Tony, he was like my superhero for 10 years. Yeah. And still I think he's awesome. And so for me, I was like
a lot too. He's a impressive cat.
He's
Very impressive.
He's
guy.
awesome. He's a wonderful man. And in like, to me, I read his book right when I was getting ready to launch my company in 2011. In like December 2011, before I was going to go live in 2012, and I was reading "Awaken the Giant Within."
I was going to say that's the giant. Yeah.
What was the serendipitous part about that, and almost like a manifestation piece is I was like, I'm going to build this thing to the standard that he would want to do business with me. And I already had like these pretty high profile executive guys. So I want to have a high standard of just service and communication and experience, because that's not happening. Most medical situations, it's like 7 minutes here, what's your bop? No, it's, oh, Bill, oh, sorry, that was the last room. Oh, yeah. Here's your, and I hated that, because again, when I had low testosterone, when I was younger, everybody told me I was wrong. I was an idiot. They can't help me, like all this. And it just pissed me off. And I was like, I want to create something that people feel heard, and then you can like channel that information to the doc so that they could do better work, because I can spend an hour talking to them and taking all this information to hand over to them that they traditionally weren't taught to take that time with a patient, right? Where obviously you take a ton of time with the folks you work with. But anyway, fast forward to that. And then did that deal with Lifeforce with Tony Robbins, and kind of once Tony taps you, other people are like, what do you know? And sold my telehealth company in 23. And then, I've been consulting and helping, a lot of the major telehealth companies out there. I've kind of been a little guy behind the scenes helping, whether it's the executive team, founders, some of that stuff, solve problems, build stuff. And then on the flip though, in 2020, when COVID hit, and I had 150 physicians on our platform that were patients, right? Throughout the country. And so when COVID hit and everything's going in all different specialties, right? Yeah. Obviously they were functional medicine or whatever we'll call it, hormone guys. And they're all calling me going, hey, you're the telemedicine guy. How do I see patients? And the funny thing too on that, another call I got in 2014, DEA came knocking because we had high testosterone prescriptions. Right. 2017, DEA came knocking because we still had high testosterone prescriptions. 2020, I get a call and I'm like, again? They're like, hey, can you help? And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, anytime we ever audited you, you're like super compliant, like you knew what you're doing, more than most practices we ever go into. Can you give some advice? And I was like, holy cow, DEA is asking for my opinion. Which was pretty cool. Yeah. And so 2020 was a shift because I'd solved something almost 8 years, almost 10 years in, that was people like, what's telemedicine? Right. And so I started consulting, helping some docs that I just knew personally. They're like, I talked to these guys regularly. I mean, major guys that ran major hospital systems even, to help them with some framework of communication and patient care, not medical care, but just communication, instruction, some of the compliant opportunities that were out there for them with staying HIPAA compliant, doing all this stuff. And that's when I realized, going in to help them with the telehealth side, and then I'm looking at the rest of their business, and I'm like, you guys don't know anything about like traditional business stuff. And they're like, no. And I was like, ooh. And so that's what kind of led me into kind of the coaching and consulting side for docs, is helping them. Because it's like, man, I meet a great doc who's so smart, has a heart to help a ton of people, but they don't have the capacity to scale. And so being able to come in and teaching them how to do some of that stuff. And one of my top docs last year literally started a company that did 20 million last year. Wow. One of my other guys, he started working another 2 years ago. He had 600 grand practice. He did 4.8 million last year. And it's like learning to hire. And then there's the psychological stuff of what is there some fear? Is there some belief system stuff? And so I tackle people with the Tony Robbins thing, some of the guys come like the Tony Robbins of doctors, right? So I'm still working on the mindset stuff, but I have enough business background because I've figured everything out wrong, right? I figured out I've paid the ignorance tax so many times, and then I can help with the business and the mindset so that scales. And so I work with a lot of docs and again, all the way up to publicly traded telehealth companies on scaling the business. Right. And that's how I spend my time today. That and being some sort of elected official in the Woodlands. Yeah. I stepped into the political side too. Is that it? What is it? Chamber of Commerce or no? It's the township board, like a city council. City council. Okay. Yeah, it was put in my heart. I actually had a pastor friend of mine. We were talking, and he was like, "Local government's the most important thing." And I was like, "You're right." Yeah. And I was like, "I agree. I should do something." And then once I commit, and I was like, "What should I do?" So I that was 6 months ago. It was a whole new change in my life. I asked my wife, I'm like, what do you think? And we bought our kind of second home in the Woodlands that we're like, call it forever home.
Yeah.
It better be, because we spent enough money on renovating it and all the stuff to it. And I was like, well, let me go check this thing out, right? And so ran for office, crazy, zero experience.
Yeah.
And I love a challenge, right? Yeah. I'm okay with like not knowing what I'm doing. And I have no problem raising my hand and asking everybody for help.
Right.
I think that holds a lot of people back. And I ended up winning. It was 4 of us running. I got 48% of the vote, which is pretty awesome, I guess, what I've been told. And had a lot of fun and just met a ton of people. And then it's funny because now I'm like this political guy. But like August 30th, or I'm sorry, April 30th, like I have the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick's coming to my house for a fundraiser event, and I start meeting these people and getting invited to speak at these events. And I think what I think the cool thing is, what I've heard is like, I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular dude. Yeah. I got business experience. I have values, right? And I got discipline and standards, and I'm not changing that.
That's what politicians are supposed to be, though, right? Like, you're supposed to be a good citizen, that's providing value to your community. You get to be in your bonnet about something. You run for office. You make a change. You go back into the private sector and you do your thing. The next guy replaces. Never meant to be a career, right?
Right.
And so you're doing it the way it's designed, which is the way the country's designed, which is off of Christian Judeo values, which is something I wanted to chat with you before we get into the next section.
Yeah.
I know you're a very spiritual, religious guy, so am I.
Yeah.
How much of this do you feel? Well, let me back up. So, conversation Gio and I have had before is kind of, I'll paraphrase, but sort of that idea of how you do anything is how you do everything, and you can be rich but be a terrible person. You can be very successful and not make any money, right? You can have a terrible physical body or terrible relationships, right? And seem successful, but you're a guy who good marriage,
want to have it all,
good health.
That's what I call it.
Right. And it's just like and unquestionably, discipline is a major component of all of those things, being systematic about that. But there's a big courage component, which for me comes from God.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's like the courage to be an idiot and be okay with it. Just like, hey, I'm going to go be an idiot. I don't care, because this guy's got a plan for me and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be going. And so that's how I do it. So how long has that been a player in your development?
Only 8 years.
Okay.
Right. And so I was always, I don't know if I was like atheist, but I was like, man, I think
agnostic.
I kind of grew up. The Christians that I saw were a bunch of hypocrites, and still today, a lot of Christians are freaking hypocrites. Still are, And there was a part I was like, I became a Christian. I was like, yeah, most of you are still the way I thought you were. But I'm like, if I could be a voice and a light for what's actually possible, and I'm not perfect. I'm one of the biggest idiots of all time. I've made so many mistakes, and so also, I don't judge. Now I think going even to the political side of like, if you're stepping in public service, you should hold yourself to the highest standard,
right,
but you should also hold yourself to the most humble servant, right? And so it's kind of, I think of, when you think of Jesus on the Last Supper, knowing he's going to go to the cross, he's spending the time with his disciples who are arguing about who's the greatest, and what does he do? He washes their feet.
Yeah.
And so I tell that to a lot of guys I work with, and myself as a reminder of the higher I get called, the lower I'm going to be willing to serve.
Right.
And I think that mindset matters, because there was a time, again, I had these celebrity clients, I'm doing, this cool stuff. And I ego, I thought I was, the greatest thing ever. And again, had some success compared to most, but spiritually I was dead.
Right.
It was somewhat self-serving. Again, it was about me feeling cool, or me can do this, or I could get this, or look at my house or car. And then 8 years ago, crazy story, this woman at the gym who I liked her. She's just gorgeous Brazilian woman, and we'd see each other and we'd chit chat sometimes. I met her. I saw her at the gym before, because she's one of those, like, you remember, because she was very attractive. And I went to an Imagine Dragons concert with my son, and she was sitting in the seat next to me with her daughter. I recognized her from the gym. She didn't know who I was. And then we, so you're at a concert, you're dancing, singing, whatever. We became friends. So we'd see at the gym and talk. And one day she was like, "Hey, are you a Christian?" And I was like, more of like a universe guy.
Yeah.
And she was like, she gave me this look like, And in fact, long story short, she ended up giving me this Jesus Calling book, which I still read. I read this morning, but she gave me this Jesus Calling book, and I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And the flip side of that, I've written 2 books. We'll talk about the doctor one, but I wrote one. I quit drinking alcohol almost 10 years ago. So it was another epiphany, a big move in my life. My dad always struggled with alcohol. Like I said, I started drinking when I was 14.
Yeah.
And drinking was always like that one thing. I think subconsciously, I believed I could never really be successful because I would do something stupid under the influence of alcohol.
Right. What's the name of that book? Something about
it's called Better Than the Binge.
Better Than the Binge.
Overcoming the social obligation of alcohol.
Okay.
Because to the point, I'm disciplined. Like when it comes to someone can talk about addiction of like, and I've wrestled with some things with addiction, but pretty good of like, I can just quit. I could make my mind up today to like never do something and just never. Like I'm just, wired. Not many people are wired that way, but
I'm wired that way too.
I just even in high school, I was telling you about being fit. Like I made a decision, French fries. I'm not eating French fries. I didn't eat French fries for like 5 years.
Yeah.
I love French fries, but I just was like one day. And so I can make that switch. And so I was like, my dad struggled with alcohol, literally drank himself into alcohol, like onset dementia, destroyed his frontal lobe. And, going back a little bit, but, growing up as a little kid, my dad left when I was 7. So I had no dad around. As a boy, devastated that like, why aren't I worthy that my father couldn't love me? So what is it? Who's that push away?
Right.
Our Heavenly Father.
Right.
And so when I'll get to
your
that
role model for God.
Yeah. So then I was like, I'm not good enough for my own dad. Right. How could a God in heaven care about me?
Yeah.
And so then as a teenager, hated him. Right. So I went from sad to angry. And then in my early 20s, whatever, I was like, I don't care. Right. I'm living my life. And then I became a father and was the greatest blessing and joy of my life. And even, like I said, my son's 17. Saturday he's going to state championship. His soccer team is in the state championship Saturday, which is, it's just like, and I'm all in as a dad, right? Yeah. Like all in. And so my son was only not too old, probably 6, 7 when my dad passed away in 2015. And there was something in my back of my head. I was like, when my dad dies, I'll quit drinking. And he died in September 2015. And before I saw him last, he barely knew who I was. And all that sadness as a child, anger as a teen, and I guess like whatever, apathetic to who cares in my 20s. And then I saw him and I'm like, oh my gosh, he missed all of this stuff that I get to experience now with my son. And then I felt terrible for him. And it was because of alcohol. Now you have other issues, insecurity, all the other crap we deal with, but alcohol definitely didn't make it work better. And so I made up my mind. I was like, when he dies, I'm going to quit drinking. That was like going to be my excuse. I need an excuse. Yeah. And he died, and I drank every single day for a year, basically. And it was coming up on the anniversary of his death, which was like Labor Day weekend. I think that's in September. And I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, I think I'm going to quit drinking. And she was like, okay. I don't know if she totally believed me. I'm like, let's give it 30 days. And I went 30 days, went another 30 days, got to 90 days. And at 90 days, the clarity I had, I'd never gone 90 days without drinking. I mean, even when I bodybuilded, we used to have it. My buddy had a joke. I could write a book called Vodka or Grilled Chicken and Vodka as a diet. I'd still have a couple of Tito's, eat my chicken and rice. And I was like, yeah, I still look good. And so I got to 90 days and like I was like, I'm a different, like my confidence, how I saw everything, the clarity that I had that I'd never had before, what I felt was possible. Which I think that was 2016, which led to this rebrand.
You'd already done a lot, man.
And that's what I'm saying.
A lot, yeah.
But also it's what triggered like this rebrand, I think, for my business in 2017, which went to the next level. Eliminated ego, brought on a business partner who taught me a ton of stuff about business, which let us go to the next level. And so I removed alcohol and I moved to Texas. So all the all the crap. I never did anything stupid in Texas.
Yeah.
No one knew me for the drinking guy.
Right.
None of that stuff. Praise God, I never got a DUI or anything like that. But moved to Texas, and that's where how this ties back into this woman is she was sharing about she was struggling, not struggling with alcohol, but like probably drinking a little too much. I was like, hey, I got a book, give it to her. I gave her that book, and then she brought me this Jesus Calling book. And I was like, cool, whatever. You know, like I liked Joel Osteen before. I was like, hey, he's got a positive message. Take that Christian crap out. Pretty good guy. You know, I said that to him when I met him. He laughs. So he's like, this is the funniest thing someone ever said to me. And I think he's like, just had the courage to say it, right? Yeah. I'm like, I'm a new Christian. I don't know how to talk like a Christian yet.
Yeah.
And so I opened that book, and it was like January, I think 19th. And I just started reading it, and I heard from God.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm always here even when you deny me. And I had this experience that was supernatural, and just a moment of taking me up back through time, all the areas, because he's like, you thought I left you, and I'm going to show you. Took me all the times I should have had DUIs. I should have been divorced. I should be in jail. Like every terrible thing you could think of, I would have deserved. Took me back to 7-year-old me when my dad left. And he's like, this is when you thought I left you. I've never left you. It like wrecked me. And in that moment, he was like, are you willing to walk with me now? And I was like, partially out of fear because of this. Like, I mean, it was like what I could think of would be like a drug flash. I mean, it was like this experience was like so unreal. I was like, yeah, okay, I want to. And he was like, I'm going to show you the future. And it wasn't like, here's your house and here's where you live. It was like this overwhelming feeling of like accomplishment and gratitude and like all the things that, like, if you think of, I try to describe it like, just think of like that child in you that just had these crazy dreams and like were smashed because maybe how you lived your life or like some other person told you couldn't do it. And like the feeling of all of that coming with certainty. And I was like, oh, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so that was a Friday. And that next morning, Saturday morning at 8 a.m., my most Christian friend from back in Michigan, he's a doc, calls me. And he usually called me like, hey, do you know this? Or you heard of this supplement company? Or you got to, you know, some reason, right? Never to call like, hey, how you doing? Especially at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And he calls Dr. Jason and he's like, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? And just kind of like BS and small talk. I'm like, what do you want? Like, what's he calling me for at 8 o'clock in the morning, dude?
Yeah.
And finally, towards the end of the conversation, I was like, hey, you know, it's interesting you called. He's the only person I knew that if we had lunch or something, he'd pray.
Yeah.
Not another person in my life. And now in Texas, and we like, and now like I pray I pray to eat my meal on the plane here. You know, like it's just funny how far, right? The difference of it. And I was like, you know, it's funny you called because I was thinking I want to have a closer relationship with God. And this is the next morning. I hadn't told my wife. I didn't tell my wife for 6 months. Yeah. I didn't want her to think I was losing my mind. And he's like, praise the Lord. He starts yelling all this stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's yelling to his wife. He's like, Juliet, you'll never believe what Adam Lamb just said. He wants to have a close relationship with God. She's screaming. And kids are yelling. I was like, dude, did you have like a bet? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
The price is right.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, this is going to sound super weird. He goes, but the Lord woke me up this morning with you heavy on my heart. I know you'd been in Texas now for like 6 months. I didn't know if something happened with you and Michelle. I'm like, stalking your Facebook. Like, he's like, yeah, I was worried about you. I wanted to check in. And he's like, this is going to be weird, but the Lord gave me a message for you. He said, don't worry about the rules, worry about the relationship. And he's like, I knew I had to tell you that, but I didn't know why or how. And he goes, I've known you your whole life.
That's such great advice.
He's like, you're not.
Such great advice.
Yeah, he's like, I've known you your whole life. You're not a rules guy.
Not a rules guy.
Someone tells you what to do, you go the other way. You've done it your entire life. In some areas it's served, in some areas it's not. He's like, but when it comes to relationships, he's like, I've never met anyone that builds relationships like you do. He's like, because you truly care and seek the person, right? And which is a great compliment. And he goes, I want you to seek Jesus that way. He's like seek Jesus like he's the new hot girl at school. Like, you know, it was kind of because he knew me. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, how do I do that? He's like, do you have a Bible? And I was like, no. He's like, go get a Bible.
You're going to need one of those.
Like, do they sell those at Walmart? He's like, I think so. I'm like, okay. He's like, you're in Texas, you probably find a Bible. And he's like, start reading
7-Eleven in Texas. Probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's like, just start reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yeah. And so I got a Bible and I started reading the Bible. And there's some other stuff leading up to this, like being in Texas. My kids had no clue why we celebrate Christmas. Out of pride and like embarrassment, I was telling my wife, maybe we start going to church. Like, I'm not qualified to teach them. Like, we'll throw them in Bible school. We'll go hang out. So it was on my heart. My heart was open to it out of just, I didn't want to get embarrassed or my kids get embarrassed because we had no clue about the Bible and Christianity. And Texas is, it's different than where I grew up in Michigan. Like it wasn't a thing. If you're like, I'm a Christian, I'd be like, shut up, weirdo. It's just different. And when I started reading the Bible and I got one of those red letter Bibles. So it's when Jesus talks and it was like, I know that voice. Yeah. And I just, and like from that moment on, I've been sold out. And here's the thing is, I didn't really know what I was sold out on, but I was just like, the book says Jesus calling, this stuff's making sense. So I didn't know religion. I didn't know doctrine. I didn't know any of that stuff. Even when people ask me, what church, the first church I went to was Assemblies of God, where it's like people talking in tongues, hands in the air, all that stuff. I don't know. I was like, I don't know. It's fun. The band's loud. I like the music. Sing, clap. I didn't know. I knew that. Not knocking Catholicism. But I was like, I know I've been to Catholic church I can't tell the difference between a funeral and a wedding. Yeah. But they all seem sad. Yeah. and so I was like, this. I don't know. I like it, right? And so I didn't have any of that, structure from the past. And so I'm just pursuing Christ and reading the Bible and reading His Word, and again, I just believe it.
Pursuing a relationship.
Yeah, just pursuing that relationship. Yeah. And like, I just walk in that every single day, not perfectly. Yeah. And you have your times where you drift. He never leaves, but you drift. And sometimes I find myself, I'm like, well, I'm in a bad mood. Why do I want to choke that freaking guy? But, and I'm like, oh, let me come back. Let me come back to, like, Lord, show me them through your eye. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's like, it's wild then. So I live my life that way. And it's gone to, it's hilarious that today, I'm asked this, like not next week, but following week, I'm flying out to LA to run a business ministry thing for a big church out there. And it's just, there's a part of me that's like, what, dude? Yeah. Like Adam Lamb, the crazy party knucklehead dude, is asked to come out to run a business conference at a church.
Yeah, talk about the Lord. You've read the book now, and you realize that that's who He always chooses.
Yeah, right? Right? For sure. So
that's who He always chooses.
100%. He uses the unqualified, the ones like, dude, I don't know. Are you sure, Lord? And just even so, going to the politics thing, I never wanted to run for politics, but God put on me. All right, like I heard, and I was like, okay, I'll go. You're going to make a way, whether win or lose. I know this is what He's called me to do. Whether it was in the relationships I met. I mean, like it's the amount of people I met, the friends that I have now. Powerful, influential, awesome people that, and again, it's all God. It's not me. Yeah. It's like I'm not special. Right? Yeah. I'm nothing exceptional. And but I just keep leaning into that every single day. And so that's the I'll tell you, when we talk about discipline, there's two things I do every single day without failure and have for the last 5 years. One, I will not leave my bed until I pray. Like I don't care how bad I have to go to the bathroom. I don't care what's going on. I will not leave my bed till I sit up. And sometimes it's a groggy kind of, sort of not the best prayer, but I sit up and like, I want to set my intention. Sometimes they're great. And I will not go to bed at night until I'm on my knees praying before I go to bed, giving thanks. And I kind of got a whole prayer structure. It's like you keep stacking it. It's like my wife calls it my like 10, 15 minute pre-bed prayer-a-thon that I do. But I don't do it. Like, I might not go to the gym every day. I might not eat clean every day. I might not drink a gallon of water. I might miss my supplements every once in a while. Right. I will not miss either of those two things, and I haven't. And so when someone asks me, which is a cool thing to share honestly, is like, what's the thing you're most consistent with? I don't leave my bed before I pray. I don't get in before I pray every day. And that's the only two things I know I do every single day without failure. Yeah. And so the other stuff is chance. Yeah.
It's my personal belief on it, and I'm even newer to it than you. But my personal belief on it is if you don't have that relationship with Jesus, then you don't know what your path is. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's really like my prayer to Jesus is show me the path and give me the courage to follow it.
Yes.
Like that's it. Like we can wax poetically about a lot of different nuances, but that's really what I'm saying is like, there is a path that leads the most purposeful life that I could possibly have.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get there, but he does. And I can't see over the horizon, but I can see the path from here to there, right? And that's all I hope for every day. Like see the path from here to there, and you know, I would imagine hey, it's on my heart to run for office. Like why? I have no idea, but like apparently it's in my path.
Well, what was interesting is when I announced I was going to run for the township, which is like, you know, it's like city council, like I said. The next day I was called and asked if I wanted to run for state rep. What sounds more cool, exciting, fun? That state rep.
Right.
But I was like, I see a devil. You see if my ego is going to trump what God's called me to do. I was like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
Because, and when people ask me, well, are you going to do something next? I don't know. Like, God hasn't said, hey, we're doing this next. When he does, I'll tell you. Or maybe I won't tell you, but I'll know where I'm going. And I really try to guide each step. And I still got the flesh, still got buying a new car. I'm like, Lord, you want me to get the, people think that's crazy. I'm like, no, listen, I involve him in every decision I make. Right. There's some decisions I don't need. I know I'm not like, hey, should I eat steak or chicken? No, but like, but the more for me, it's more about a habit, routine of like, I want to be connected with him in his path. He will whisper, he will show you the way. He's not going to show you the full roadmap because there's no faith in the roadmap. Right. But he's going to show you walking the next steps of the light at the feet. Right. And I'm not going to, it's not going to make sense. Right. Like being able to release it. And it's taken a long time to do that. And it's a lot of what I try to teach of like, even when I was running for office, I was like, I might lose, but there's something I'm gaining something. When business deals go sideways or something with a client or something, I'm like, cool, I'm learning something. And if my ego and my flesh are running the show, I'll miss it. Yeah. If my spirit's running it and I'm surrendering, I will see everything that I need to know and learn in that process.
Yeah, I say that all the time. It's like we're so arrogant to think we even know what's right. It's like, well, I want to go over there. I want to do that. That could be the worst outcome of your life. And so when you don't get it, you feel disappointed if it's all about you, if it's all your ego. And it's like, well, I'm going to set up a plan and I'm going to get there. And then if you don't get there, you're like, I failed. But if you're like, well, that's his plan. I think it's that way, but there was a sharp detour there, and I didn't get anywhere near where I thought I was going. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the message for I think why people listen to me these days. So you've got a background in health and wellness and fitness and performance. You've got a background in business. You've worked with you've seen a lot of doctors build practices. You've helped build practices, been in the telehealth space. Now everybody who has a phone has a microphone. Everybody who has a phone has a platform. Solzhenitsyn and Viktor Frankl both said the same thing about being in the gulags and the concentration camp. Is that hell exists where everything's a lie. Everybody's lying. Everybody knows everybody's lying. Nobody's allowed to tell the truth. So everybody acts like they believe the lie, but nobody actually believes the lie.
Sounds like Congress too.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's kind of what social media is right now. I have this suspicion that AI is going to become so ubiquitous and so prolific that it's gonna outpost real people, and and social media is just gonna go away because everything is gonna be so clearly a lie. Yeah, I'm hoping for this. I don't know. Something will have to.
It's coming, but I'll tell you something.
Something will have to replace it.
An interesting nuance for that is I work with a lot of doctors. Doctors aren't good at the average doctor is not creating content like this, right? They're not you. Right. And so we have a platform that we're getting ready to launch where I can say, hey, Dr. Parsley, I need you to shoot, a few videos, wear a couple different outfits, these angles, and then we take those videos, we create a UGC version of you, and then we can go to chat and say, hey, here, write 50 different scripts on peptides and regenerative medicine, right? And then create 50 different videos for Dr. Parsley, and then you can take those and throw those on a calendar that posts in your social media. And it's not even you. It's AI, like that stuff. So we're using it for the sense of docs that just want to create content, but just like, you got to set up your right. And you and I understand the media side of the game. But to your point, and I agree, and I also hope it gets to that point to where it gets so full that the authenticity, the realness, like who actually, there's going to be a separation of noise and like true, credible humans.
So that's the question.
We got a couple of years probably, though.
Guys like you and I have been steeped in this our whole lives. Yeah. We've been living it, practicing it. We know people who are experts in all different facets of it. How does the lay audience decipher the signal from the noise out there? You know, something I've talked a lot about with other people. I don't know if you know who Rob Wolf is, kind of the founder of the paleo movement, and biochemist, research scientist, nutritionist. But something we were talking about 10 years ago is like, we need some sort of registry for people who know what they're doing, right? And some way of vetting these people to where we know, it's gotten better with telehealth because I can kind of see people anywhere now. But before it was like, how do I find a doctor in Waterloo, Iowa? I'm like, I have no idea, right? How do you know? But now it's like the opposite problem. There's 50,000 doctors out there on social media telling you that they have the solution for your problem.
And it's because they read one book.
They watched the podcast. They took a course to teach them.
Or maybe they're like, well, I'm going to get on testosterone. All of a sudden, like, whoa, this is the greatest thing ever. And they've been on it for 12 months. They've maybe seen 15 patients total in their life, and now, but they're real good at creating content, and so now they're taking the attention. I think the step that's even worse. I'll never forget this. Recently, this realtor gal that I know acquaintance-wise, gorgeous, good following. I don't even know if she's a great realtor. She's posting peptides. Here's my peptides. Do my peptide. And I'm like, what? I'm like, hey, bro, if you were taking peptide advice from a realtor that started taking peptides 3 months ago, you deserve every stupid thing that's going to come along with it.
You've kind of earned your misery.
I was like, but anyway, sorry. But that was one I was thinking of that was like, what is going on?
What I always tell people, but I'd just be interested in your take on this, because obviously there's, like we talked about, there's influencers who have great physiques and they work out. Maybe they work in a gym. Maybe they actually own a gym and they've trained a few people or something. But they're giving advice that is orders of magnitude more complex than anything they know. And like you alluded to, the vast majority of them don't work with anybody, whether they say they do or not. The vast majority of the coaching, online health coaching, is pyramid schemes, right? Like I'm going to train you to be a coach, and then you're going to make money by training other people how to be coaches. And
I see some of these guys too, even, and it's like they post the same 5 clients. I'm like, how are you this big?
Right.
You only have five people that you can show their before and afters, and I don't care, but it's just I pay attention to a lot of the detail of to the point of what you're talking about, and like a registry or something like that, like you mentioned. It's interesting. I think there's going to be a divide. One of the things it's annoyed me, if I'm being transparent, in the healthcare space, but I think there's some good of it is like Legit Script. Are you familiar with Legit Script?
Sounds familiar, but
it's like Better Business Bureau type thing. So Legit Script basically is this company, and I think the intention is good, but it starts becoming a racket. And because they're saying, hey, Dr. Parsley, if you want to be Legit Script certified, you got to pay a bunch of money, fill this stuff out, and we got to make sure that you can only work with pharmacies that are Legit Script certified. And what it does is allow some of these telehealth companies to advertise online. The goal was to make sure, like, I'm not selling Viagra from India, right? But me selling Viagra from India is a far gap of maybe what some of these other mainstream telehealth companies are doing, so that they can do Google ads and Meta ads, and they can say they're Legit Script certified, and basically you're paying this money and all these kind of things to do it. And so I think it's done good, but like, again, I get to look under the hood of, I know what's going on behind most of these companies, right? I know the founders, I know some people, I know there's a ton of companies doing terrible things, there's a ton of pharmacies doing terrible things.
Yeah.
But they might still have that stamp.
Right.
Because there's ways around it.
Right.
And so I think to your point to a registry thing is, and I agree, like, how do you do it? My opinion when it comes to you is I was like, how do we make you the face of something massive? And then there's a course and training that everybody that wants to work for that company has to follow, like that's how you scale the business side of it.
Yeah.
But I think there's always going to be snake oil salesmen out there as long as people will buy snake oil.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah. And the snake oil is very appealing.
Yeah.
Right. Because they'll say hyperbolic stuff that you and I know isn't true. Right. Yeah. People who've never worked out in their life and they're 45 years old and they're 40 pounds overweight and they're like, you're going to look like this guy in 6 months if you follow my program. And it's, no, you're not.
And I'm excited.
That's not going to happen.
I'll meet somebody, a guy I met recently. The guy lost 100 pounds now, and he talks about peptides.
Right.
But he also changed his nutrition, changed a lot of stuff. And so then he gets a big following, gets a before and after thing. And it's like, he may be looked at as an expert. And I like, dude, you're inspiring other people. That's awesome.
Right.
But don't claim to have it all figured out because you're 18 months in this knowledge journey of, like you and I were talking about, like the difference of being 30 years in, 20 years in, reading stuff, seeing what's false, seeing, I was a tinfoil hat guy in my 20s. My kids have never got the shots.
Yeah.
My kids have never drank tap water. My kids have never had fluoride. My kids have never had aluminum based, I've been drinking that Kool-Aid for a long time. The food, microplastics, all those kind of things, which is all part of it. Not just like, oh yeah, just take peptides, so there's stuff where I'm like, dude, there's a bigger picture of all of this stuff for longevity, even to the point where I'm like, let's do an epigenetic test.
Right.
Mine's 28 and I'm 46. I'm like, where you at?
Yeah.
Like, because you just started 6 months ago. So, and not that, and I don't claim to be an expert. You my content I put out and share, I might say, here's what I do.
Right.
Rarely, but it's not my wheelhouse because I know there's guys like you that exist. Yeah. And I'd rather say, hey, let me introduce you to Dr. Parsley or whoever that I think could be a better expert for them.
I see there's this genre of, usually they call themselves biohackers, but that's being, I think that term's sort of fading. So they're scrambling for some new labels, but it's like, I had this health problem, man, I was overweight or I was chronically inflamed or, whatever their story is, but some sort of health problem that the doctors couldn't figure out. They just weren't smart enough. And so I did all my own research and I figured out how to fix myself. And now I'm not claiming to be a doctor, but I'm highly suggesting that if you follow what I did, you'll get these results. That's one genre of people that
it's bad.
I think you just dismiss that, even though there's some great people and that, right? Like I personally know some people who have learned a lot, but again, they're realtors and they figured out something for themselves, and
they might be passionate about it,
right? And if you have some sort of highly unusual circumstances to where the traditional things that would work for that aren't going to work for that, it's probably you, right? It's not going to be just like this other person who figured it out for themselves. And so you would be better served figuring out for yourself or working with somebody who has the bandwidth and selflessness to help you figure out what is your N of one situation. So that's one group, and I just unfortunately I think the best thing is just to dismiss that. Like that's my personal.
That's what I'm saying. Congratulations that you found an answer, and that there's whether it was like someone's like our food's toxic. It's like
no kidding.
I know, and so keep sharing that. But again, you people ask me like, hey, so what all do you take? And I don't even answer. I'm like, what's your goal?
Right.
Like, what's your blood work?
What's your goal?
What I'm like, because what's
your goal right now? Even, right?
Exactly.
Because I set annual goals with my clients, but then we have quarterly goals because we can't do everything at once. So it's like, what are we going to do this quarter, and then that quarter, and then hope. The idea is that once we add up all 4 quarters, it looks like that annual goal.
Yeah, the evolution of things, and then being realistic with some of that stuff, and then understanding what's your health history, what's your familial background. Have you had any kind of genetic testing done? Do you know what's going to work, what's not going to work? Have you ruled out? There's so many different ways to do it. There's also a way to dump a ton of money into a path with an unqualified person.
Right.
Where, I think that
they're going to put you on 80 supplements and 15
and it's
peptides.
like,
and
you don't need all those things. Yeah. Because I'll have someone like, hey, they're recommending me this. I'm like, those 4 peptides, all do the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah.
This guy doesn't know what he's doing. Or he's just
trying
to make a bunch of money.
The number of supplements that have so much overlap. I get all these, my patients, I get new clients and they'll send me their supplement list. I'm like, these 7 supplements all have the exact same active ingredients in them. They're marketed for different things and they're labeled by different companies.
You were sold, congratulations.
But these are all the same, and then these are all the same, and these are, like, you could replace these 35 with 7.
Yeah.
Like, right, 7 that have the active ingredients. All right, so we have that sort of biohacker group. And then we have the expert doc, and a lot of these people are, colleagues, and I'm friendly with them. So I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but there's the doc he's always the expert on the next thing, right? There's the next thing, hormones, he was the expert. Ketogenic diet, he was the expert. Hyperbarics, he's the expert. Peptides, he's the expert.
Yeah.
And he's always got the sage advice.
Likely is selling something.
Right.
In that.
And he just happens to be selling hyperbaric chambers, and he's the expert on hyperbaric chambers right now. And those guys, again, it's hard to just say, well, throw that away completely. I was wondering if you have a way of discerning around that, because, honestly, like I do work with lifestyle. Like I say 80% of what I do is lifestyle. I'm a lifestyle coach that can prescribe, but I do hormones, and I do supplements, and I do peptides, and I do hyperbaric with my patients, and I'll recommend my patients do saunas and light therapy, and some people are doing cold plunges, and some people even doing psychedelics if that's appropriate for them. Like, so if it's a tool and it works, I use it. But I don't stand up and say
specific.
I'm the hyperbaric guy. I'm the light bed guy. I'm the sauna. I'm like, no. I read other people's research. I use those protocols clinically. I see what works. I adjust things with my patients. I don't have a huge patient load because that's my design.
I think one of the plasma things, a big one I've seen. And so that's one that, that's like the new thing where, again, I've paid attention to the space. I've met some of the expert docs in that space. That was one thing I left out. I got into regenerative medicine, umbilical tissue, Wharton's jelly, stem cells back in 2019. I had an Achilles tendon that wouldn't heal for 9 months. Had a doc I knew out of Utah. He's like, over the phone, which is just funny. Long story short, and this guy's an expert, but I got salmonella in Dominican Republic. And this is where I think go into some of these stories, but I never went and shared. Maybe you'll appreciate this. So it was Dominican Republic, got salmonella, total massive inflammation. And I get my blood work done every quarter. So just coincidentally, the week before I went, I had my blood work done, C-reactive protein, 0, nothing. Came back, C-reactive protein 33. So you can imagine that amount of inflammation. And but I go to Joe Schmo doctor who's checking me for Chunkalunga virus and HIV and West Nile. I'm like, I was in Africa. Like all these things. And I'm like,
spiral CTs, baby.
All this stuff. Everything you can think of that I'm like, he's like, nope, negative. And so this doc in Utah, I would say he was a guy similar to you, just lots of wisdom. And him and I were talking about a mutual patient of his, because he wasn't a hormone guy though. And we were talking about, and then we hung up. I was like, hey, can I pick your brain for something? And I was like, man, I've been dealing with this thing. I got full inflammation. I mean, tissue tearing, I had meniscus tear, Achilles tendon tear. I was like, I thought I was dying, 38 years old. This is right after I find Christ too, where I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, the salmonella is probably still in your gut. And I don't know how you feel about this, but he's like, and I'm not recommending this, but he's like, take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every hour with food until bowel tolerance. He's like, that should kill it. Literally woke up the next morning after a flu. And again, I'm not going to run around and say, hey, everybody do this. But I'm just sharing an experience. And this is what I think happens, where these things get birthed. Right. And he's like, you probably have an autoimmune. You're probably HLA-B27 positive. Go get tested. He's like, and then I want you to do a stem cell injection, or whatever you want to call it, but let's call it stem cell injection. the Achilles tendon, you should be good to go. And we're going to get you on these peptides, which was like BPC one. No, that was, again, this is 2019.
Yeah.
BPC 157 that's going to help heal you. And I'm like, okay, so vitamin C. Next morning, I'm like, holy crap! It's like when you break a flu almost. I finally felt something was different. I didn't have this. I felt like my whole body was on fire. Again, went to the mainstream docs and got no answers. And then after that, I was like, all right, I started getting into peptides, found a doc that knew a lot about regenerative medicine near me, didn't know business. And I was like, look, can we do the injection, do the thing? Did it. 30 days later, first time I was out of pain. I mean, I was in so much pain. My wife was dropping me off at like the front door of restaurants because to walk, the only thing that took away the pain was Vicodin. And I was like, this is how people go down that slippery slope, because it's the only time I felt good. And it created this capacity. Because for me, I was like, how do people get addicted to this stuff? Come on, just quit. I didn't get it, right? And then I did. I was like, I understood chronic pain, and it set me on a mission again to go down the business side, because there's this doc who's kind of local who did regenerative medicine. He just sucked at talking about it. He didn't know how to share it, experience. And so I helped launch that, and it was wildly successful, and have been in that space now for a long time because of that. And so here's why I share that, though. I went down that research path, found qualified people in the space, and I was like, how do I help more people learn to come to you, right? How do we build something versus going on social media and be like, oh, if you have this, go take up 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Like there's a gap, and maybe it's just the discernment I had at the time, almost 8 years ago. But I think that's where some of this stuff,
morality, I think, and integrity that you didn't get. Hey, everybody should do what I did.
I just believe in the guinea. Like when someone asked me about something, like what do you think of Red True-Tide? I don't know. I've never taken it. It sounds good. I can talk to people. Like if I haven't taken it, I don't know. And I can talk to people that might know it. But I think it's just always. I think because my personal brand is so important to me, and my word I want to be gold. That and I have no problem saying I don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the hardest for any doctor to say, is I don't know.
I have an interesting story about
that.
That's
where they go down a bad path.
So in medical school, the first 2 years are didactic, you're in a classroom, and the next 2 years you're rotating through the hospital, and there's a staff, and usually an academic, the most academic of the staff guy who wrote it. And in my experience, usually pretty pedantic people. And I would say no fewer than 30 times in those 2 years did I just get my butt chewed out by the staff doctor for saying I don't know.
Yeah, which makes you.
I was like, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. And they'd say, well, they'd say this one little bulleted fact. I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like they taught us that in medical school. I remember how to regurgitate that little sentence, but that doesn't. But I don't know how that applies here, and I don't know if that applies here. And I don't know. And it's not an answer that most people want to hear.
How hard it is just for humans in general, to say, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's one of the most freeing things. And when people I meet in any situation that are like, I don't know, I'll have to look into there. I don't know. Let me think about it. I'm like, I trust them.
So I was an ortho track, in my education. That was my intention, was to be an orthopedic surgeon. In the Navy, you can only do your first year of residency, and then you have to go out and be a general practitioner, so to speak. And so I went out and I did my tour, my general practitioner tour back at the SEAL team to give it back to the community that had shaped me. And that's what completely changed how I practiced medicine. And that's what got me, I left the whole traditional system because of that job. Because I went there and the SEALs were coming in and closing the door behind me and go, hey man, just between me and you. Yeah. Because, the doctor can disqualify you from your job. So they don't want, they usually don't tell the doctor anything, but they trusted me because I was a SEAL, right? And it's between you and me. Let me tell you what's going on. And they listed out these, 15 symptoms. And I was like, I don't have any idea. No. And I said it I'm like, I have no idea. Like that's a big puzzle, but I'll help you figure it out.
Yeah, but are you down to figure it out?
Let's start figuring it out.
Right.
And the first thing I did, I sent him to the hospital. And this is not an exaggeration. I went through the lab list and I ordered every lab that I knew how to interpret.
Yeah.
Like because I had no idea what system was off.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's off, but just everything I know how to interpret. But I was so shocked that even admitting these guys that I don't have like the foggiest idea. I have no idea where to start because these symptoms don't seem related, right? It's like
you're dealing
everything
with
from
superheroes versus what mainstream medicine is dealing with sick people with three.
And these guys just want to perform better. Like that's all it is. It's like by anybody's standard, they would say this dude is healthy. He's ripped. He's got muscles on his muscles. He's like doing this crazy.
And that was how I felt at 20 with low testosterone, where they're like, "What do you, dude? You're fine." I'm like, "Something's not right."
Right. And they're just like, but I can't do this the way I used to. And they'll be like, maybe I'm just getting old. I'm like, dude, you're 28. Like that. You're not even at your prime yet. But I was so surprised at the power of me saying, I don't know. But the way the SEAL community works is they find somebody who will help them that they trust. They tell their buddy. He tells his buddy. He tells his buddy. Within 3 months, I probably had 100 guys who came in and told me the same story. And I was like, I don't know. But that's how we started figuring it out. And that's what changed everything. And my whole life was that sentence. I don't know.
I love that. Well, it's great because when you, again, for me personally, and I think obviously for those guys, it sounds like too, is when someone says they don't know, like you can trust, like, but I'm willing to help solve this with you.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But it might take a year. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
But if you're like, oh, it's probably just such and such, and that's already something I've tried or done, I'm like, nah, you're not. I can't. I'm not coming back here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that. Yeah, and as it pertains to your conversation, though, on the social media side of those things, too, is, hey, maybe a good filter is if you never hear them say they don't know, maybe you shouldn't be listening to them.
Or if they don't say, hey, I don't know, but there's this guy that I trust. Go read his Substack, go listen to his podcast. I do that a lot. I say, I don't know, but this dude seems really smart on that. I know 10% of what he knows. I read his Substack. I've maybe had a few conversations with him, but that's the guy. Go check out him. Go ask him. That's a litmus test. Yeah. Maybe you could build a filter into your social media that has like a humility scale in it, right?
Yeah.
That just like, for this guy doesn't pretend to know everything. Maybe I can listen to him.
And it's interesting, and I think there's some of I call them like the bodybuilder docs too, and I'm not knocking them, but they're like they get attention because their size, but 99% of patients don't want to look like that guy, and that guy probably knows a lot more about hormone performance,
right?
But there's a longevity, right? Like my goals at 46 compared to 26 is totally different, right? I want to live at 150 and be fit and feel good about myself. Some people, it's like, I want to be jacked forever. I'm like, you won't, dude.
Yeah.
You're not going to be, you're not going to be like Abercrombie model ripped forever.
Right.
You can take all the drugs you want. Gravity and time is going to catch up.
Yeah.
But quality of life and I think health spans like the term.
Right. Yeah.
Is something that's more important for me. That in my early 40s, especially after the alcohol was part of it, of like the cognitive decline of like, I want to be sharp as a tack as long as I can. Right. And if I'm not, super fit looking anymore, but I'm still sharp, like, because I enjoy my mind way more than my body today.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was an idiot. So my body's kind of all I had. Yeah. And so I think as we think of these things, thinking about the big picture, if it's like, all I care about is my face looks young, and it's like, at some point your face is going to look old, or you're just going to die early, right? You're going to die earlier. So what are you focused on the other things?
Right.
My financial advisor, a friend of mine, he's obsessed now with longevity. New to the game, he's meeting everybody, trying to talk to other people, because he's talking about, traditional, like say life insurance stuff is, it's maybe you live to 92, to get to 97. He's like, but what about if they live to 120? And they're like, oh, we don't have those models. And he's like, listen, with,
it's coming.
Like, my philosophy is
actuarial tables are going to have to be
be adjusted. But and that's his point is the rates haven't changed for that yet. And he's like, because we're looking at, because I just redid some of my life insurance recently, which is some old school loops that, when someone says BMI, I'm like, I was like, like with the ladies, she did EKG. I mean, we did the whole thing. And I'm like, can we take a picture of me in my underwear? Because BMI and me in my underwear might tell
I'm morbidly obese by BMI.
I lied. But she's like, how much do you weigh? And I was like, I'm like 200. And I'm like 215, 216. And then she pulled out the scale and I was like, why'd you ask? I was like, I'm lying. I'm trying to get that BMI down. But it's, it was interesting because he was talking about these, people living to 120, 130, like, and a good life, and there's, I think this kind of, Tony, Peter DeMonte's, I always hack his last name up, like Tony Robbins, those guys, a lot of those guys are talking about, if you can you live another 10 years, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to live, I say, unless you get hit by a bus, like to live a long term.
You can live long enough for the science to catch up to you.
Right.
Yeah, but there's a phrase in that world, the sort of the excessive world is like, if you can live long enough, you can live forever, which is meant to be like a play on words, but it's like if you live long enough for the science to catch up to you, maybe we super extend life.
And I think that goes where the initial part of our conversation too, from poverty versus having like a lot of financial freedom. If you're not focused on having, a lot of people, having that financial planning so that you can't work forever. Well, if you can take care of your health now, maybe financially aren't going to be great, but you'll be able to work longer.
Right.
And if you don't want to, that's going to be tough because there's going to be a lot of people running out of money.
For sure.
And I think there's going to be people with money that are going to have the ability to live longer. And we're looking at, some of the way, these policies that the way it starts stacking post 100 is like nuts.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, but to your point, like the ratings haven't necessarily caught up yet, and that's where maybe it was a sales tactic by him too to let's lock it in, which I wanted to. So, but locking some of those things in, and so it's interesting how, and again, I think that you and I have the ability to have that conversation is a little further down the track than the real estate chick selling peptides, right?
Right.
So, and that's where I think my filter when I'm looking at these guys is. And this kind of sounds bad, but you addressed a little bit of this earlier. Is like, do I want their life, right? Like, is there? Yeah, you look good, but like, there's some of these social media guys. Like one of them, big popular guy out of Miami. He's Jack, prison guy, got all his Rolls Royces, but I think he's got thrown in jail for like beating his fiance. So it's like, I don't think I want to be like you, right? And so I think there's a part of you talk about that filter of that, whether it's a doc and it's like scroll through 3 years back, what are they doing?
Right.
Did they just figure this out 18 months ago? Mm-hmm. Maybe find a guy that's been doing it for 18 plus years, versus the 18-month guy.
Right.
And so I think people are people.
Yeah. So if people follow your work, do you endorse any guys that people to help people find that? Or
it's a great question. And again, where it starts is out of just pure habit of what I've done for 20 years in the space is, what is it? If someone's like, hey, where do I get peptides? I'm like, hold on.
That's not the right question.
What are your goals? What do you it literally, and it will align people almost personality wise, or, there's some docs that it's like financially they might not be able to afford that doc, or there's, like understand like what are your goals? What's your financial means? How much you're willing to invest? Right. And so, and that's just, I think part of the path that I do that in. Or if someone asks me, there's a handful of different companies too that I get to work with, whether I'm on advisory board or some of those things. And where some it's like, hey, go to these guys for this, because it's pretty easy and you kind of, you know what you're doing and this is just a resource for it. You're not going to be blown away by the advice and care. Right. Or it's like, hey, I think you should go here because I think you need a little bit more knowledge, hand-holding. You're probably a bit more complex. And that's just with my knowledge and my ability to ask questions. So I mean, off the top of my head, I don't have anyone like super specific. It's a good idea to start building that. I think would be good. I mean, I know that you have a limited capacity of who you can work with. But I think that's part of, the docs I work with is trying to help some of those, again, really smart docs,
right?
Sometimes really small practices because of a capacity or just business systems, processes. Sometimes it's a belief system that no one else can do it as well as I can. I'm like, well, if you train them, they can. And so that's kind of my passion of what shifting of, I want to be the guy behind the scenes that's helping, because I want docs to have the power. I don't want the insurance company to have the power. I sure as hell don't want the government having the power.
Right.
And I think my mission is how can I help 10,000 plus physicians get in a position of power to practice medicine the way they want to help the patients that have the best alignment.
And where it's affordable for many more people. I mean, like by design, like my programs are simply not affordable. Like I don't even know if I could afford my program, to be honest. Like I have the way I practice. I'm spending so many hours with every patient, with one patient, that it's like, you're paying for 100 patients because I'm spending, I'm spending 120 hours a year with you or something. It's like, it's not going to be.
And there could be a model for you in the way that they don't get that. Like, there's tiers, and that's where I brought this book I'm going to get to you today, but I wrote this book, the 7-Figure Practice Playbook. And this just teaches a bunch of stuff that I've taught doctors and stuff like that, because to work with me one-on-one, some of them can't afford it, but also I don't have the time. I can't work. I can't, I'll have no life. And so that's not what I want to do. And I've been to that point. So I've been maxed out and I was like, no more. I can't. And so creating, courses and creating group stuff. And so I think that there's in the business side of it is, I think more personally, I think more really highly qualified docs have to figure out better ways to embed their philosophies. What happens a lot of times is you become one of these who's who experts on social media.
Right.
And then, ABC brand company wants to make you like their spokesperson.
Right.
But the company is being built on business financial metrics, not proper patient solutions and care. Right. And that guy's getting a paycheck or gal's getting a paycheck for being like this on the front of the website.
Wrong.
Yeah. And versus, and I think there's some people out there doing what they're doing. I think it's also hard to check out all of them.
Right. Yeah.
To see who's doing the best job. How do you typically direct people? Because, you can't.
I mean, I have a handful of guys that I would say I've trained them. I don't have like an official training course, but they're doctors I already have a relationship with, who express an interest in this. And I'll say, show me the guy's labs. You and I will talk for an hour.
Yeah.
Like you go talk to your patients. So I have a handful of guys that I can send down to for people who can't afford a program. Like, sometimes I don't even have room in my, I take a limited number just so that I can give people all the time they need.
Yep.
And it varies hugely. Like what they're offered, some people take 100% of what they offer, what I offer. Some people want 120% of what I offer time-wise, and some people, they take 20% of the time, and they get the same results because they're.
I found the busiest, most successful people won't use your time as much.
Yeah, they don't use your time very much.
They actually listen to exactly what you tell them to do. And then some of the people that maybe aren't quite there yet, they're the most needy. They want to twist everything you tell. In my experience with, so I understand that process.
So I've given a lot of thought and some conversations you and I could continue to have, I think, but I have some ideas on my biggest passion is obviously the SEALs, because that's my community, but then I expand that kind of to all former soft guys. There's 10,000 former SEALs. There's probably 40 or 50,000 former Green Berets. That's a plenty big audience for me. That's way more than I can handle, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to create some sort of specialized treatment for them, because the way the military works is, it's a micro society. It is very similar things. And so your professional athlete endorsement is your soft endorsement, right? So if your SEALs and Green Beret and Delta guys are doing it, well, then all the other guys in the military are going to want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to start with the veterans, and the veterans are going to influence the people who are in, and that's going to influence the people.
The veteran program of it's like, how do we, and that's part of, I think, what led me into the politics side of, because I'm like, there's some really stupid people making very important decisions, especially as it pertains to health. You know, and I was so inspired by, RFK kind of this Maha thing. And maybe I don't agree with everything he does and talks about, but he's, at least the conversation's happening.
Trying.
And I think some of the fallout is we get some of the online overnight internet experts too, that are like, me too. I stopped this, and now look at me, and let me tell you how to live your life. But it's creating that conversation, and I think which is going to eventually will create pressure because I subscribe probably a similar belief to you of like, how cool would it be to have some special government funded VA, but it's not traditional. I never hear anyone's like, oh my gosh, my VA experience was so amazing. I never hear that. And that's terrible. And so
it's the DMV of medicine is VA.
Great example. And so how could it be something that's outside of that, even if it started like, hey, let's run a pilot with these, SEAL guys, Green Beret guys, stuff like that, and start this pilot of proving something that's kind of proactive, more, I don't know what word you want to use, the performance health, preventative health, some of these things too. And we have a massive veteran suicide rate too. So it's like, you and I both know, like, I mean, again, one of the symptoms I had when I had low testosterone when I was in my 20s, I was super depressed, which led me to alcohol, another thing. And I'm like, in my head, I got testosterone. I still, it didn't fix all that stuff, but it definitely made me feel better.
It helps. I mean, testosterone's a great mood elevator. It's a great anti-inflammatory.
But imagine if this, like what you do for some of these, SEAL guys transitions them into a better health thing, and that becomes like, and that's my vision and like hope for this country is that we're stop doing what we used to do. Like, if this was a job and like, hey, dude, everybody's fatter, sicker, like everyone who's in charge, you're all fired. We're going back to the drawing board. First part of being elected to who gets to start saying stuff, you better look the part. Like if you see some of these like health ministers, this place, I'm like, that dude's a chick and thinks they're like, what? Like, I'm not doing anything this guy tells me what to do. And so there's some common sense and less craziness that I think has to come along. But I'd love to see something like that, right? And building that framework. I got a doc who's actually flying in town. He's a dentist, and he's working on some stuff with a DOD deal for sleep apnea. Like, I don't know how you feel about the sleep device, like having something like that.
Those are like the oral appliance.
Yeah, the oral appliance,
1,000 to 1 over CPAPs, in my opinion. Like, that's a way better solution.
Because, like, me being the business guy too, is I'm like, there's a way, not to go down the influencer route, but you can get some of these fit. Part of, and you and I both know, if you're sleeping better, you're going to get more fit. You're going to have less fat. You're going to have less insulin resistance. All these other things. I mean, you're the sleep expert. I don't have to tell you but so he's looking at that, and in my head, I'm like, as we're talking, is like, how cool would it be to have a program that's like, hey, it's only going to cost this per patient per year. It's a system, so to speak. And then that system gets trained through providers throughout, the country, so to speak. And then it's like, let's start with this group of guys. And if they knew it was led by someone like you, and they're like, oh, okay, we trust him, versus, Joe Schmo, Dr. Academia, who hasn't seen a patient in 20 years, who's like, I got the solution. No, you don't. You haven't seen anyone in a while. So I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I
think we're going to wrap it up there. We've been going for a couple of hours now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, but you and I know you and I always can.
Yeah. What would you like for anybody who's interested in your work, anybody who's interested in working with you or just learning more from you? Where would you want to send anybody?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think if there's any docs out there that are interested in how they could maybe optimize their business a little bit more and integrate what they do really. Again, I know you see a limited amount of people, and in my brain, I highly respect how intelligent you are. You're passionate to help people, and in my head, I'm like, how do I help him help 1,000 people without him exploding and losing his mind? Because the duty side is like, more people need to see you because of how good you are, right? So again, I say that to docs that are listening, that maybe they're thinking, I want to go on my own, or I want to anything business wise. That's my book, and I'll send them my book for free, 7-Figure Practice Playbook. But I coach docs. And we have a cool mastermind of docs too, that like we meet. We have a ton of I have hours of coursework that teaches you everything you need to know on that stuff. So they can follow me, Adam Lamb 33 on social media. It's called the 1% Doctor, and like what you mentioned earlier is the 1%. It's called the 1% Life. Was kind of birthed out of wanting to live in that top 1% in all areas. Again, because when I was younger, I'd see these guys, I'm like, that guy makes a ton of money. He's cheating on his wife. He's got a cocaine problem. Like, I don't want your life. Right. And so the premise is like, if you want to have it all, you want to be fit, have a marriage that's on fire, and a strong relationship with God, and build great businesses and live a life that's just awesome. I help specifically doctors have all of that. Right.
All right.
So that's it.
All right.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for the Doc Parsley podcast today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next show.